Port Jericho was loud, crowded, and always smelled of hot metal and engine smoke. Ships came and went every minute, some heavy with trade goods, others barely held together by rust and hope. In the middle of this mess sat the salvage dome, a huge ring-shaped building where lost cargo from wrecked ships was sold to anyone with credits and courage. Inside the dome, an auction was already in progress. Voices echoed, machines hummed, and bright lights flashed over the stage where workers rolled out items from forgotten corners of space. Most people came looking for scrap parts, rare minerals, or old ship tech. Nothing alive, nothing dangerous, and definitely nothing strange. Elias Marrow stood near the back of the crowd with his arms crossed over his chest. He was taller than most people there, broad-shouldered, and looked like someone who had seen too many battles and too many broken worlds. His beard was gray, his hair was messy, and his jacket was patched more times than he could count. He looked tired, but his eyes still had a sharp spark that came from a lifetime of surviving. He didn't come here to buy anything special. He only needed a few small parts for his workshop, a stabilizer coil, maybe a half-decent energy cell. But the auction was slow today, and he found himself drifting into the crowd to pass time. The auctioneer, a short man with a loud voice and even louder clothes, slammed his hammer down. "Next item," he shouted. "Lot 42. Special find from the drifting freighter Sunrise Echo. Labeled as biotech storage equipment, found sealed in a containment bay." Two workers pushed a large metal capsule onto the stage. Dust covered its sides, and small cracks ran along the edges. A faint blue glow pulsed through a narrow window. Elias frowned. The shape was familiar, too familiar. It looked like a stasis pod, the kind used to hold something biologically sensitive, sometimes plants, sometimes medical samples, sometimes living beings. The crowd murmured. "Is that alive?" someone whispered. "Nah," another said. "They would never bring something alive out here. Too many laws." The auctioneer cleared his throat, clearly nervous. Pod is inactive but still holding minimal power. Classified as miscellaneous biotech. Opening it is not recommended. The way he said it made everyone lean forward. Then, with a reluctant sigh, he added, "We will open it for inspection." "As it." Elias straightened immediately. Open it? That was unusual and dangerous. A worker pressed a release button. The capsule hissed, steam rolled out, and the blue glow flickered, then faded. The door slowly lifted, with a groan. The crowd fell silent. Inside, lying curled like a frightened animal, was a girl. She looked young, maybe 12 or 13, but her features were clearly alien. Her skin was pale with a faint, shifting pattern that looked like soft light underwater. Her hair was silver white, thin and soft like threads of silk. Her eyes opened slowly, revealing a bright, glowing violet color that was both beautiful and unsettling. She blinked at the crowd, confused and weak. A small sound escaped her throat, not quite a word, not quite a cry. Something between fear and pain. People stepped back. Is she dangerous? Is she diseased? Where did she come from? Sentient salvage is illegal. Voices rose, sharp and accusing. Some people backed away. Others pointed fingers. A few looked ready to run. The auctioneer panicked. We didn't know. The pod was mislabeled. By law. Sentient life. The girl curled tighter, her small hands shaking. She looked terrified, her eyes darting everywhere like a trapped creature. Elias felt something twist in his chest. He had seen that look before long ago, on battlefields where civilians hid under rubble, hoping soldiers wouldn't find them. Fear like that left marks that never healed. The auctioneer tried to step away from the pod. Well, this is clearly a mistake. We'll call the authorities. The crowd erupted. No, they'll throw her in a lab. She's probably a weapon. Let the corporate security take her. She should be quarantined. She's not human, she's not our problem. The girl flinched with every shout. Her glowing eyes filled with tears that shimmered like liquid crystal. Elias knew what was coming next. Authorities, research labs, corporate custody. She would be taken apart piece by scientists hungry for discovery. Someone so young, so scared, didn't deserve that. He stepped forward. "Stop," he said calmly. The auctioneer blinked. "Sir, please stay back." Elias ignored him. He walked up to the pod, slow and steady, careful not to startle the girl. He crouched in front of her, hands open to show he meant no harm. The girl tensed, but she looked at him. Really looked. For a moment, her glowing eyes softened. "It's okay," Elias said in a gentle voice he hadn't used in years. "You're safe." The auctioneer hurried over. "Sir, step away. We can't allow anyone near the specimen." Elias turned his head slightly. His voice remained calm, but firm. "She's not a specimen. She's a person." The auctioneer froze. The crowd murmured angrily, but they didn't dare approach Elias. The man's presence alone kept them back. He had that kind of aura. "I'm claiming guardianship," Elias said. The auctioneer almost dropped his hammer. "What? You can't just claim." "There's a clause in the humanitarian salvage laws," Elias continued. "If a sentient being is found in abandoned cargo and is in immediate distress, any registered citizen can claim temporary guardianship until proper asylum is arranged." The auctioneer opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again like a confused fish. I don't think that applies here." "It applies," Elias said, meeting his eyes. "Check your rules." Section 9. Paragraph 4. A few people pulled out their holopads. After quick reading, whispers spread. "He's right. It's legal. He can actually do that?" The auctioneer gulped. "Yes. Well, I suppose." The girl watched Elias carefully, her breath shaking. Slowly, she reached out one trembling hand. Elias didn't move, except to open his palm and let her touch him first. Her fingers were cold but soft. Light flickered under her skin. When her hand rested in his, she let out a small, broken sound, like relief. The auctioneer sighed heavily. "Fine. Temporary guardianship granted. But she must be registered and checked by medical." "No labs," Elias said sharply. "That's irregular." Elias stood to his full height. "So am I." The auctioneer wisely decided not to argue further. Workers stepped back, and the crowd parted as Elias carefully lifted the girl into his arms. She was light, too light, as if she had not eaten or moved for days. She clung to his jacket, her head resting against his shoulder. Her glowing eyes closed slowly, trusting him. People whispered angrily around them. "He's crazy. He's going to get himself arrested. She's probably dangerous. Why risk your life for an alien?" Elias ignored every word. He had made his choice. As he walked out of the salvage dome, the warm sunset of Port Jericho washed over them. Ships flew overhead, engines roaring. The girl lifted her head slightly, watching the sky with awe and fear. Elias spoke softly. "Don't worry, I won't let anyone hurt you." She didn't understand his words, not completely. But she understood his tone. She relaxed against him, her hand gripping his coat. For the first time in a long time, Elias felt a purpose pulling him forward. He didn't know who she was, where she came from, or why she had been left drifting through space in a broken pod. But he knew one thing clearly. He would protect her, whatever the cost. Elias carried the girl, now gently wrapped in a thin blanket, through the crowded streets of Port Jericho. The sounds of engines, merchants, and shouting crews filled the air. But inside Elias's mind, only one thought remained. She needed safety. He had already decided on his destination, a small, cluttered workshop on the edge of the port, far from the watchful eyes of corporate officials or government agents. The workshop was old and patched, full of tools, half-fixed machines, and scraps of metal. But it was his own space, his sanctuary. And for now, it would be hers too. The girl's eyes opened occasionally, her glowing violet gaze darting around. Everything seemed new, confusing, frightening. She made a small noise, almost a whisper. Elias crouched beside her. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." She tilted her head as if trying to understand his words. Her small hand rose slowly, touching his cheek. It was cold, delicate, and for a moment, Elias felt the full weight of the responsibility he had taken on. She was more than fragile. She was unique, and he didn't even know her name. "I'll call you Lyra," he said after a moment of thought. "Does that sound okay?" Lyra blinked. A faint pattern of light ran across her skin, like a ripple on water. Elias took it as agreement. By the time they reached his workshop, the sun had dipped below the horizon, and the port lights reflected off the metal hulls of docked ships. Elias carried Lyra inside and laid her gently on a cot. He covered her with another blanket and stepped back to examine her. She was clearly alien, but also small and vulnerable, like a human child. Her breathing was slow and uneven, and Elias suspected she had been in the pod for a long time. He did not know if she had eaten or moved in days. "I'll get you something to eat," Elias said. He went to the small kitchen area and returned with a cup of warm liquid and some nutrient paste. Lyra's eyes followed every movement. Hesitantly, she took the cup with both hands, sipped, and nodded once. That small gesture filled Elias with quiet relief. For the first few hours, Lyra did not speak. She only watched Elias as he worked on small repairs in the workshop, the hum of machinery filling the silence. Elias wanted to learn more about her, but he knew he had to be careful. She was frightened, and any sudden words or actions might scare her away. Finally, as he adjusted the lights above the cot, Lyra made a small sound that could almost be recognized as a word. "Lee, as," she whispered. Elias froze. She had said his name. He walked closer. "Yes," he said softly. "My name is Elias. I'm here to help you." Lyra's glowing eyes flickered brighter for a moment. And then she exhaled slowly, as if a small weight had been lifted. Elias understood that this was a fragile trust forming. The next few days passed with careful routine. Lyra ate, rested, and watched Elias work. She started to mimic simple words, showing a remarkable ability to learn quickly. With the help of a small AI module, Elias began teaching her standard, slowly, carefully. In the evenings, he asked questions. "Where did you come from?" he would say. But sometimes, small flashes of memory appeared in her glowing eyes, images of vast landscapes, of stars, of alien cities built on cliffs and floating platforms. Elias realized these were more than dreams. They were memories, fragments of a past that had been violently erased from the galaxy. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over Port Jericho, Lyra's hand glowed brighter than usual. Light rippled across her skin in a complex pattern, like an alien map. Elias gasped. You're special," he said. Lyra's eyes met his, wide and frightened. Then, she placed her small hand over his, and the light dimmed. Elias felt something he could not explain, a connection, as if she could sense his intentions, his honesty. The next morning, Elias decided they needed more answers. He reached out to a friend who specialized in alien languages. The AI translator helped them slowly decode Lyra's fragmented words. My people, gone," Lyra whispered one evening, her small voice trembling. Taken disappeared. Silent. Elias's heart sank. He had suspected something terrible, but the confirmation hit him hard. "Who took them?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Don't know. Big ships, shadows, hungry." Elias understood. Somewhere out there, organizations, corporations, or rogue factions were hunting her. Lyra was the last of her kind. Her species, the Starborn, had been erased in what she called the Silent Harvest. "Don't worry," he said firmly. "I won't let them take you. Not while I'm alive." Over the next days, strange incidents began happening. Tools moved on their own. Machines in the workshop powered on without Elias touching them. Small gravity shifts occurred when Lyra became frightened or angry. Elias realized she had abilities beyond human understanding. She could manipulate energy in ways that seemed impossible, perhaps a gift of her lost species. But she was still a child, and she did not fully understand her power. The danger became real when two uniformed agents appeared at the workshop door. Their suits were white, their badges unfamiliar, and their weapons low but visible. "Stand down," the taller agent said. "We are authorized to secure the alien child found in Port Jericho." Elias stepped in front of Lyra, his hands raised but firm. "You'll go through me first." The agents exchanged glances. "You don't understand. She's dangerous. She's valuable." "She's not dangerous," Elias said steadily. "She's a child, and she's under my protection." The taller agent sighed. "We have protocols. We must." "No," Elias interrupted. "Not today. Not ever. Not while I'm standing here." The girl watched silently, her small body trembling. Then, she raised her hand. A faint pulse of energy shot outward, causing the nearest lights to flicker. The agent stepped back instinctively. Elias looked at her. "It's okay. You don't need to use it," he said. She exhaled, and the light faded. But Elias knew the agents had witnessed her power. They would report it. Soon, more would come. That night, Elias packed what they could carry. Food, water, basic tools, and some spare parts for the ship he called the Brass Comet. He knew staying in the city would be too dangerous. "Are you ready?" he asked Lyra gently. She nodded. Her trust in him had grown. Slowly, carefully, Elias lifted her into his arms and left the workshop through a hidden exit. The city slept, unaware that two lives, one human and one alien, were about to change the galaxy. On the outskirts, Elias guided the Brass Comet into a dark hangar. The ship was old, patched with different metals, but it flew. And it could take them away from Port Jericho, away from the first wave of danger. As they lifted off, the twin moons disappeared behind the horizon. Lyra pressed her forehead against the glass, watching the city shrink below. Elias started the engines, feeling the hum through the floorboards. "You'll be safe," he whispered. "I promise." She looked at him, her glowing eyes reflecting the ship's interior. For the first time, she seemed calm. The stars stretched ahead of them, endless and mysterious. Elias knew that somewhere in the galaxy, someone was searching for Lyra. Someone wanted her gone, or worse, controlled. But he also knew this. Humanity had never backed down when it mattered most. And he, a single human, would not allow fear, greed, or power to take the child in his arms. For Lyra, for her people, for a future that still had hope, they would survive. And humanity, Elias realized, could be more than just another species in the galaxy. They could stand for what was right. The Brass Comet jumped into hyperspace, leaving Port Jericho behind. For now, the city was safe, but the real journey had only begun. Lyra's past was a mystery. Her powers were unknown, and the galaxy held dangers they could not yet imagine. Elias looked down at her sleeping form and felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had made a choice, and there was no turning back. Together, they would face whatever came next. Somewhere in the darkness of space, a shadow moved. Someone had noticed Lyra's disappearance. The hunt had begun, and humanity would not be passive. The brass comet hummed quietly as it glided through hyperspace. Elias sat at the controls, his hands steady, his eyes scanning the display screens. Lyra sat nearby, curled on a cot with her knees drawn up. Her glowing violet eyes blinked slowly, watching the stars streak past the viewport. The silence was heavy. Both of them knew that peace was temporary. Someone out there was hunting Lyra. Someone who wanted her powers, her species, or perhaps both. Elias had seen it in her fear. In the flicker of energy she could not fully control. "We need to find out who is after you," Elias said softly, not looking away from the controls. Lyra's glowing skin rippled like water. She lifted her small hand and touched the console lightly. The ship responded not through controls, but through her presence. Energy pulsed from her fingertips, making the lights flicker. "You... help," she whispered. Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, we'll find out together." They started by traveling to a distant human colony known for intelligence gathering. New Asteria, a floating city, orbiting a gas giant. It was a place where information had value, and whispers could be traded for safety. Landing was tense. Lyra's eyes stayed on the exit, alert for any threats. As they disembarked, Elias noticed the usual mixture of traders, travelers, and smugglers moving about. None seemed to notice them, or at least, not yet. Inside a small, dimly lit data hub, Elias introduced Lyra to Tara, a human linguist who specialized in alien languages. Tara was calm and intelligent, with eyes that missed nothing. She examined Lyra carefully. "Your species," Tara said softly. "I've read Legends of the Starborn. A living map of hyperspace, capable of connecting distant points of the galaxy." Lyra's glowing eyes widened slightly. She whispered something, fragmented and broken. The AI translator hummed and slowly pieced the words together. "They took all gone." Elias clenched his fists. "Who took them?" he asked. Tara shook her head. "Records are fragmented. Most of your species disappeared centuries ago. There are rumors of a syndicate, powerful beyond comprehension, that harvested them for some unknown purpose." The words hit Elias like a blow. They weren't exaggerations. Someone had deliberately wiped out Lyra's people, and now they were searching for her. Suddenly, the translator buzzed with a warning. "Incoming signal detected." Elias froze. The ship's sensors had picked up multiple fast-approaching vessels. He looked at Tara. "They found us." Tara's face remained calm but serious. "They won't hesitate. You need to leave. Now." Back at the brass comet, Elias and Lyra rushed through preparations. Lyra's small hands touched the controls instinctively. Lights pulsed. Engines surged. Elias realized she was beginning to understand the ship in ways beyond his teaching. The first wave of ships appeared in the viewport, sleek, black vessels moving faster than anything he had seen. They opened fire almost immediately. The brass comet shuddered, and alarms blared. "Hold on," Elias shouted. He twisted the controls, dodging energy blasts and asteroids alike. The pursuit was relentless. Lyra's energy began to flare involuntarily. Light rippled across her skin, and the weapons of the attacking ships misfired, thrown off by her presence. Elias saw the fear in her eyes, but also the realization. She was not helpless. She had power. "Focus," he yelled. "Use it. Only if you have to." Lyra's hands glowed brighter. Pulses of energy radiated from her fingertips, creating small waves that disrupted the enemy's targeting systems. One ship spun out of control and collided with an asteroid, exploding into fragments. Elias let out a relieved breath. "Good job," he said, "but we're not safe yet." The brass comet jumped through several quick hyperspace jumps, each time narrowly avoiding enemy scanners. During one jump, Lyra's memories surged uncontrollably. Scenes of her homeworld flashed: cities floating on cliffs, fields of strange glowing plants, starships powered by pure light. She remembered her people singing in unison, their voices resonating with the stars. Elias watched her, amazed and troubled. But they were also the key to understanding Lyra's identity, and possibly the reason the Syndicate wanted her alive. After several tense hours, they emerged near a remote asteroid field. Elias guided the brass comet into a hidden cove among jagged rocks. The pursuit lost them for now, but he knew it was only temporary. Lyra curled on the cot, exhausted. Elias sat beside her. "We're safe. For now," he said. She tilted her head and whispered fragments. "Taken. Silent harvest. Never. Again." Elias nodded. "I won't let that happen," he promised. The next morning, Elias decided they needed allies. They contacted old friends, human pilots, ex-military, and traders willing to help. One by one, they joined Elias, impressed by his determination and bravery. None questioned why he protected an alien child. In fact, they admired him. "You really trust her?" one pilot asked. Elias looked at Lyra, sleeping peacefully for a moment. They spent days gathering intelligence. Lyra's abilities grew stronger, and she began understanding small commands in standard. She could interact with machinery, create small energy fields, and sense danger before it happened. Elias realized her species' abilities were tied to instinct and emotion. When she trusted him, her power was steady. When she feared, it surged uncontrollably. One evening, while they were charting the paths of their pursuers, Lyra suddenly froze. Her eyes glowed intensely. She whispered a name in her strange, musical language. The AI translator struggled but eventually gave a rough translation. Harvest. Core. Station. Elias's heart sank. That was the location where the Syndicate had been experimenting with starborn essence, where they had likely destroyed her people. And now, they might be using it to create something dangerous. "We need to stop them," Elias said, determination hardening his voice. "We can't just run forever. If we don't, they'll keep taking more. Maybe others we don't even know exist." Lyra looked at him, glowing softly. For the first time, her fear was replaced with understanding. She knew the danger, but she also knew Elias would protect her. The following day, they prepared the brass comet for the long journey to the Event Horizon Array, the facility rumored to be at the heart of the Syndicate's operation. Supplies were packed, weapons checked, and Lyra's energy monitored closely. As they traveled through deep space, Elias reflected on humanity's role in all of this. Humans were not the strongest species, nor the most advanced. But they had something unique: courage, compassion, and the willingness to protect the vulnerable. That spirit had carried him through wars, through hardships, and now it would guide him and Lyra through the most dangerous journey of their lives. Several days into the journey, scouts from the Syndicate appeared. Sleek, black ships surrounded them, cutting off any escape. The brass comet shuddered under fire. "Lyra, you need to help," Elias shouted. She placed both hands on the ship's controls. Light pulsed from her fingertips, energy radiating in waves. The enemy ship's systems flickered, then failed. One ship spun into an asteroid. Another collided with its companion. Elias took the opportunity to jump through hyperspace, leaving their pursuers temporarily behind. After the jump, they emerged near a dead system, where no ships traveled and no sensors functioned. Elias guided the ship into an abandoned station, using it as a temporary safe haven. Lyra curled on the floor, exhausted. Elias sat beside her, holding her hand. "We're close," he said. "Soon, we'll find the station. Soon, we'll stop them. And humanity will stand with us. One, 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 one." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. She understood, not fully in words, but in feeling. She trusted Elias. Together, they would face whatever came next. Somewhere far away, the syndicate's leaders were receiving reports. The child had escaped, the human protector had grown stronger, and the path forward was uncertain. The hunt had begun, but the last starborn was not alone. Elias clenched his fists, looking out at the stars. "We'll finish this," he whispered. "No one will ever hurt you again. No. 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 No." The brass comet powered up. The stars ahead stretched into streaks of light as they prepared to confront the greatest danger in the galaxy. For Lyra, for her lost people, and for humanity itself, the journey was far from over, but hope burned brighter than ever. Approx. 1,250 words. Simple. English. Third person. The brass comet glided through the final stretch of hyperspace, leaving empty stars behind and approaching the event horizon array. A massive station built around a pulsating energy core. The Syndicate's fortress floated like a black star, surrounded by a cloud of satellites and weapon platforms. Elias gripped the controls, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning the viewport. "This is it," he whispered to Lyra, who sat beside him, her small hands folded in her lap. Her violet eyes glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She had grown stronger, more confident, but Elias could see the tension in her posture. She sensed the danger, and so did he. "The station," Lyra said softly. Her voice was small, but filled with warning. Waiting." Elias nodded. "I know, but we're not alone. Humanity stands with us." He glanced at the communication panel. Allies from various human colonies had arrived. Pilots, engineers, and old comrades from his military days. They had risked everything to aid him, drawn by courage and the promise of protecting the last starborn. Together, they were a small but determined fleet. The brass comet led the way, weaving between defense satellites, while Allied ships provided cover. Energy beams and missiles zipped through the void as the fleet engaged the Syndicate's forces. "Keep her safe," Elias shouted through the comms. "Don't let them touch her." Lyra placed her hands on the console instinctively. Light rippled from her skin, spreading through the ship. Energy pulses deflected incoming attacks, sending some missiles spinning off into the void. Elias realized her power was not just physical, it could interact with technology, with energy itself. The station loomed closer. Its massive structure pulsed with stolen starborn energy, the remnants of Lyra's people trapped in the arrays. The sight made Elias's blood boil. Someone had stolen not just lives but the essence of an entire species, and now they sought to control it. "Ready?" he asked Lyra. She nodded, her eyes shining. Elias reached over, holding her hand. "Together," he said. "We can do this. Together." With careful precision, he piloted the brass comet through a gap in the station's defenses. Lyra's energy flared, shielding the ship as beams of light and fire raced past. They docked inside the station, unnoticed for the moment, and Elias opened the hatch. Inside, the station was vast, filled with corridors of metal and glowing conduits. Pulses of stolen starborn energy ran through the walls like veins. Machines hummed with unnatural power. Elias moved quickly, keeping Lyra close. Suddenly, figures appeared, scientists and guards in black uniforms, their eyes cold, their weapons raised. Step aside, one demanded. You cannot interfere with the experiments. Elias stood firm. She's not an experiment. She's alive. And humanity will not stand for this. The guards advanced, but Lyra raised her hands. Energy radiated outward, stopping them in their tracks. Pulses of light disrupted weapon systems, short-circuiting the machinery. Elias pressed forward, helping her navigate the corridors. They reached the central core, a massive sphere of glowing energy. Within it, faint silhouettes shimmered, trapped consciousnesses of the starborn. Lyra's eyes widened. They trapped, she whispered. Elias's fists clenched. We're going to set them free. Together, they approached the control panel. Lyra touched it, her fingers glowing as she interfaced with the stolen energy. Pulses ran through her, connecting her to her people's memories and strength. Elias stood behind her, defending against incoming guards. The station shuddered. Alarms blared. Machines sparked and groaned under the strain of Lyra's power. She focused, drawing on the memories of her people, the essence of her lost species. The trapped starborn began to shimmer, their consciousnesses resonating with her energy. Almost free, Lyra whispered. Elias held his ground, deflecting guards with a combination of courage and human ingenuity. Makeshift weapons, quick thinking, and pure determination allowed him to protect Lyra as she worked. Finally, with one final surge of energy, Lyra touched the core. A brilliant wave of light burst outward, shattering the containment fields. The starborn were free, their consciousness dispersed into the galaxy, no longer trapped, no longer enslaved. The stolen power flowed back into the stars themselves. The station trembled violently. Alarms screamed. The syndicate's scientists fled, terrified. Elias grabbed Lyra, and they ran toward the exit as the entire structure began to collapse. Outside, the Allied fleet had broken through the remaining defenses. Ships engaged the syndicate forces, protecting the escape of the brass comet. Elias piloted carefully, weaving through debris and fire until they were safely in open space. Lyra slumped against him, exhausted but glowing faintly, radiant with relief and triumph. Elias smiled. You did it, he said softly. You saved them all. She looked up at him, eyes filled with wonder. We did it, she whispered. The fleet regrouped. Messages of victory spread across human colonies. News of the syndicate's defeat and the liberation of the starborn consciousness inspired hope. Humanity had not just survived, they had stood for what was right. In the quiet aftermath, Elias and Lyra drifted toward a safe frontier world. Lyra sat by the viewport, watching the stars stretch past. She was no longer just a scared child in a pod. She was the last starborn, the bridge between her people and the galaxy. Elias watched her and realized something profound. Humanity was more than machines, weapons, or colonies. Humanity was courage, compassion, and the willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. That spirit had carried them through wars, through hardships, and now, through the liberation of an entire species' memory. Lyra's energy dimmed to a soft glow, peaceful now. She spoke softly, almost to herself. New. Beginning. Elias nodded. Yes. A new beginning for you, for your people, and for us. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns. But with courage, compassion, and the choice to stand for what was right, humanity could make a difference. Elias and Lyra had proven that. As the brass comet descended toward the green-blue planet below, Elias held her hand firmly. No one will ever hurt you again, he said. Not while I'm alive. Lyra smiled faintly, the first genuine smile Elias had seen on her. Safe. Home? Yes, Elias said. Home. The stars stretched ahead. But for the first time, they looked less like dangers and more like possibilities. They had faced fear, darkness, and impossible odds, and survived. Together, they had changed the course of the galaxy, and humanity had stood, unwavering, brave, and true. The journey had begun, but hope burned brighter than ever. Lyra would grow, learn, and one day, decide her own path. Elias would be there to guide her, protect her, and ensure that the galaxy remembered what it meant to stand for justice, compassion, and life. The last starborn was no longer alone. Humanity had become her guardian, her ally, and her family. And somewhere in the depths of space, the galaxy itself seemed to pulse with renewed possibility. Elias looked at Lyra, her violet eyes glowing softly in the dim light of the brass comet. He whispered, almost to himself, "This is just the beginning." And with that, the ship descended toward their new world, carrying hope, courage, and the proof that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, humanity could rise and stand tall.